deals in the industry. Prior to KPMG, Sir was at Arthur Andersen for over a decade. Sir is a regular conference host, presenter, and moderator at various tax conferences and seminars. He has regularly featured in a number of international and Indian media outlets. See, he is a fellow chartered accountant. Sir, we welcome you to WIRC for the session. I would request Rahul sir to please present the memento to sir.
Good afternoon all. Sorry for this glitch. What I'll do is I'll take 45 minutes conscious of lunch, maybe 30 to 45 minutes. I'll just summarize the issues and you ask me questions. We'll make it interactive so that we can just have an edge of it. A lot of M&A is happening, we all know. And really, if you look at it, what is happening, what we heard in the previous presentation also, you're seeing business transfers, slump sale, itemized sale, you're seeing share acquisitions, primary, secondary, mergers, demergers, lots of stuff happening in the whole ecosystem. Some listed, some unlisted, different kinds of options. So if you look at the key drivers, so what I see ahead is many companies will restructure to raise capital. So subsidiarization, raising money. You're reading about Jio now. Jio Telecom, should it be demerged? Should it be subsidized, and should you raise money? Should you have two similar businesses together? what is a better PE multiple. You'll see many, many more reorganizations getting announced. Raymond's, real estate separation. Every day you will see something or the other getting announced. And really, growth also you will see lots of growth. You will see a lot of acquisitions. You will see a lot of people doing trust will, succession planning. They will have their own tax issues. IBC, presently not very clear as to how the write back of IBC should be taxed. Hopefully the budget should clarify that. There's a big debate whether write backs are taxable or not taxable. And public markets will keep going up. You'll see more and more issues. You know what's the biggest fear today? The biggest fear is that what happened on 4th June will happen on 23rd July. 4th June, the markets crashed. 23rd July, the market will crash again. And the fear causes capital gains tax. The unlisted players are saying, when I call this topic unlisted versus listed, unlisted players are saying that the capital gains tax rate should be reduced from 20 to down and should be similar to the listed. They are hoping 20 becomes 10. Because of that hope, the listed companies are fearing 10 will become 20. So where will this capital gains tax end? Whether it's going to be 10, 15, 20, short term will be 15 to 30, whether short term will become 1 to 2 years, whether futures and options will be taxable. All these things are a fear that will scoop the market on the 23rd if capital gains tax is tinkered with. But the IPO market will remain very, very strong. And IPO market, even if this happens within a month, again the market will look better because there's a lot of flow in the system. So really, if you look at listed companies are a different ballgame altogether. If you do a merger, demerger a listed company, you require SEBI approval. SEBI interferes in the process. SEBI approves the listed companies' merger, demerger schemes. Unlisted companies don't need to go to SEBI. They just need to follow the NCLT stroke MCA process. If you were merging a 100% subsidiary with a holding company, you don't need to go to SEBI. It is automatically exempt. However, you have to file the scheme with SEBI for disclosures. Whereas anything you do with listed companies, unlisted merger into listed, any restructuring in the listed company, you require SEBI approval. And SEBI is extremely vigilant in the approval. Extremely vigilant means they go through valuations, they challenge valuations. We running a practice where we do valuations also. I go to SEBI at least once in 15 days to explain the valuation reports. It's very, very rigorous. So as professionals, as people in the industry, for listed company, the valuation report is very, very carefully to be done. Everything has to be justified because SEBI will question each and everything. Can SEBI reject a scheme if it is not satisfied on the valuation? Any experiences you all have? Can SEBI reject a scheme? Answer is yes. So they are rejecting the scheme. They are saying go and look at the valuation again. They are saying go, otherwise we will appoint valuers on our own. So otherwise we'll give you such observations that the shareholders will have to be told. So SEBI is God as far as listed companies merger demerger is concerned. So really we need to obtain a valuation report from registered valuers. As per the SEBI LODR law, you require approval of the majority of minority. So you can't vote. So if you were doing a related company merger, demerger, you can't vote on it. Your vote will not be counted. You need majority of minority. Then there are other schemes where unlisted companies are merged with listed company. Now that's the flavor of the season. Like reverse merger karte, reverse engineering, flip, reverse merger karte. If you do reverse mergers, then you have to comply with promoter norms of 25%. There are valuation norms to be complied with. You just have to ensure that public is 25%, otherwise SEBI will not approve it. There's the relaxation of companies seeking listing of shares pursuant to a scheme, the 19(2)B relaxation for merger demergers, and there is the lock-in which the promoter has to go through in some cases where reverse mergers happen. So when you're dealing with a listed company, SEBI LODR becomes a very important part to evaluate as to whether your scheme will go through or not go through. So let's, in the interest of time, I will not go through the example. Second thing we have to worry about is the trigger of takeover code. Any acquisition of a listed company triggers the takeover code. Takeover code is triggered when you acquire shares or you acquire control. It's triggered when you acquire along with people who are acquiring along with you. Suppose I take 15% shares in a company and I tell two of you, please you also take 6% each. Together we will become 15 plus 12, 27% in the company. Will the takeover code get triggered? Yes? So it is the intent. Suppose if ऐसे नहीं छुप छुप के करते हैं, हम लोग साथ में नहीं बोलते, एग्रीमेंट साइन नहीं करते, तुम भी करो मैं भी करता हूँ. Will takeover code get triggered? Yeah. It's the intent. It's the intent. People acting in concert, written, unwritten agreement. But if the intent is together get to 25% plus, takeover code gets triggered. Takeover code also gets triggered if you are owning more than 25%. You know, nowadays, because the markets are so good, everybody is an advisor, right? Everybody is an advisor. Even my carpenter who comes at home does futures and options. Everybody is an advisor. So everybody tells each other, you know, why don't you do warrants? It will become double. Put money in warrants. What happens in warrants? In warrants, you pay 25% upfront, balance you can pay in 18 months. So let's do warrants. Let's do maximum warrants. Let's do 25% warrants. Can you do 25% warrants? If you're owning more than 30-35% in a company? No. You can do warrants. How many warrants a year? 5%? Correct?
Only 5%.
You?
Warrants, but you exercise
Okay.
5% or less to take care of creeping approach.
Done. So you can acquire 5% in a warrant in a year. So let's say financial year. So let's say we do warrants in October. How many warrants we can do upfront? You can do 15%. Very important point, because we have 3 financial years, 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27. If we do warrant in October, pay 25% upfront, we can exercise 5 this year, 5 next year, and 5 before September the last year. 18-month period will ensure that you won't stretch up to September, we'll have to do it in April. So if you do warrants after October, without triggering the takeover code, you could actually do 15% warrants and pay only 25% upfront. So when you're doing, is there any period for unlisted companies for warrants? Is there any restriction on warrants of unlisted companies? Is there any partly paid up shares you can do in an unlisted company? You can do whatever you want. Listed, you have a restriction. So clearly, it's on acquisition of shares and acquisition of control. What is control? Suppose if I do a supplier agreement, I have a right to appoint 3 directors out of 5. Will the takeover code get triggered? Behind? Will it get triggered? Yes. It will get triggered. It's you acquiring control. So control or shares, you have to see what is control. Suppose if I acquire 24% in a company, and I get veto rights in the company. Veto rights means that, you know, if you go and buy an asset, you need my approval. If you do a bonus, you need my approval. If you do capex, you need my approval. If you employ employees, you need my approval. In that case, will the takeover code get triggered? Veto rights, will the code get triggered? So when P get veto rights, will the code get triggered? So in private equity deals, private equity takes 20-25%. They all have veto rights, protective rights. Will the court get triggered?
Yes, if it amounts to control, yes. That's
So-
an interpretation issue.
So as long as the rights are only to say yes or no, but not drive decisions, the court does not get triggered because it's the rights to protect your interest. But if the rights are that I will drive decisions, I will control, I will make things happen, then it is triggering the takeover court. So I have to be very careful as you design rights. So takeover court, SEBI, LODR, very important points. Indirect acquisitions also trigger takeover court. So if I have a holding company which has shares in listed companies, when I acquire shares of the holding company, though they are unlisted, the takeover court gets triggered. In my example, CICO, BICO, ACO, ListCo. So in this case, if I acquire shares of BICO or ACO, indirectly the transfer is happening of ListCo and the court gets triggered. So same laws apply to that also. So it's direct or indirect, both. Takeover court has exemptions, so listed companies, transfer between relatives, transfer between promoters. Now again, 3-year, you have to be a promoter. Transfer under IBC schemes, transfer under merger, demerger, transfer under restructuring schemes, rights, buybacks. Everything you do with listed companies, you have to see what is the change of promoter shareholding which happens, what is the indirect change in control which happens.
I have a question on this. If the shares are of a holdco, the shares are given in a trust, and the shareholders die, and as a result, the beneficiaries of the trust get those shares. Will the takeover could be triggered if it is exit 25%?
See, the thing is, when the distribution happens from the trust to the beneficiaries, what I tell clients is that make sure that you disclose both of them as promoters in your company. Because otherwise there's a problem. Otherwise, if you have not disclosed, because let's say I create a trust for you, sir, because you're very intelligent, you're my father, you're my brother. I create a trust for you. When I transfer to the trust, I will go and take a SEBI exemption because SEBI exemption is required to transfer to a trust. Otherwise, you can't transfer unless the trust is the promoter inter se. When the trust distributes to the beneficiary, one argument is the beneficiary and the trust are the same, so it should not require approval. But SEBI is not looking at it that way. If you make both as promoters, then when the shares come back to the beneficiary of the resolution of trust, it's exempt from takeover court.
Then 3 years bar will apply.
3-year bar will apply, so better be safe. And suppose something happens within 3 years, then you go and take a specific approval from SEBI. Good question. Now everybody comes to you rushed before the IPO. मैं trust बनाऊं कि नहीं बनाऊं? Everybody thinks that trust बनाना बहुत जरूरी है, नहीं तो otherwise पीछे रह जाएंगे. So everybody comes to you before the IPO. Suppose if you have not made a trust before the IPO, then you can't make a trust for the next 3 years. Because the law is as disclosed as the promoter in the filings with SEBI. So technically you wouldn't have filed anything with SEBI if you're unlisted. So your 3 years starts from listing. Godrej family settlement. So when you're doing family settlement in trusts, when you're doing family settlements in listed companies, you have to comply with the takeover code through. So this is a very famous settlement which you're seeing all around. In this case, if you see promoter A, promoter B, public, the holding company is Godrej Industries. Godrej Industries has several listed companies, Godrej Properties, Godrej Consumer, Godrej Agrovet. And the family settlement happened at the Godrej level, wherein the Adi Godrej group decided to take over Godrej Industries, and the other family took over the Godrej Boys and Manufacturing, which is the real estate and the other businesses. So when the transfer of shares happened from promoter group A to promoter group B in a listed company under family settlement, it was promoter interstate transfer, takeover code not triggered, tax not triggered. And then similarly transfer of shares happened from Godrej Industries to some promoters, vice versa, which is in compliance with takeover code and where the taxes have been paid. So can family settlement be between two companies? Can family settlement be between Godrej Industries and Godrej Boys? No, because it has to be between individuals. Settlement has to be within individuals. So between family A, family B, whatever we transfer, no problem. Between company, when we transfer, takeover code gets triggered, tax gets triggered.
But is family arrangement restricted to only the blood relatives, or how does it go? It can go to what generation?
It can go to, take an example. Take any family, it is 4-5 generations. Between blood relatives, you don't need family settlement arguments because gift is anyway exempt. But if there's a family of 4 generations who have built a business together and you're splitting that family, then the family settlement arguments can be applicable to the whole family, though it may not be immediate family. Family settlement essentially is not law, it's a judicial outcome. There are case laws which says, जब बंटवारा होता है तो टैक्स नहीं लगता है. There are case laws. Family settlement is a बंटवारा. Take an example. I and you built 5 businesses. And after building 5 businesses, we say 3 you keep, 2 you keep. We will split for peace and harmony. That's family settlement. If our grandchildren split, no problem. It's still family settlement. Suppose if I and you built a business and I say, तू 1000 रुपया ले ले चले जा, आज से 500 मेरा. Is that family settlement? Is that family settlement? Yes? Is that family settlement? It's purchase of his shares. Family settlement is Batwara. If I did this, it's bordering on purchase of his shares. I purchased his shares, I told him, please go. Family settlement, the case of Batwara. 5-6 हम उसको, and if I just argue that me just merely buying his share is family settlement, it's an argument, but case laws are Batwara. Suppose if I say family settlement, suppose if I say company A, we both have company A and B, I'm taking you as an example. In the family settlement, A will transfer to B, B will transfer to A. After the transfers, A will be owned by you, B will be owned by me. When the transfers of A to B happens and B to A happen, is it family settlement? But it's not tax free because this company is transferring. Between the two of us, it's family settlement, but within the company, it's not family settlement. Suppose if A and B were not companies and were partnership firms. Partnership firm A transfers to B, partnership firm B transfers to A. Would it still be family settlement? Answer is, there are case laws which says in that case it's family settlement because partner and firm is same. And especially if it's not a LLP, it's the same thing. So the point is that family settlement is a very complicated animal. Tax issue in family settlement, takeover code issues in family settlement, GST in family settlement, it all depends upon how the settlement is. So all settlements are not exempt. Some are transfers garbed as family settlements. You have to be very, very careful.
As per the SEBI regulation, the family settlements have to be disclosed. Is this in public domain, this agreement?
Yes. As per the SEBI regulations, when the SEBI regulation came, it was not all the future, all the past also had to be disclosed. So whatever Dabur did, Munjal family did, all are in the public domain. So all have to be disclosed and we have to seek approvals wherever the listed companies are. No, so you have to give a summary, you don't have to give agreements. You have to give a synopsis of the key elements of the family settlement. Have you all followed the Grasim case? Grasim case, so when you do listed companies demerger, what can you demerge? What can you demerge? You can demerge a business. What happened in Grasim's case? If you see the company up, Nuvo, Aditya Birla Nuvo, and there was Grasim. Under the transaction, Aditya Birla Nuvo merged into Grasim. And then, after the merger, the financial service business of Grasim got demerged into Aditya Birla Capital, which is now listed. So first merger happened of Nuvo into Capital, then the demerger of the financial service business happened. The financial service division only had shareholding in ABFL. And the question is that, is demerger of shareholding an undertaking? Is it a tax compliant 219A demerger? The income tax office attempted to say this is not a demerger. And the tax office contention was that this was not an undertaking because shares is not an undertaking. And because shares is not an undertaking, 219A is not complied with. And deemed dividend is applicable because this is distribution of shares by Grasim to its shareholders. And they attempted to tax this distribution as dividends. The case happened. And at the end of the case, the department argued it was a non-tax-free demerger, but eventually the ITAT confirmed that you could actually go ahead and demerge shares as long as you had controlling interest and as long as you are taking decisions on those shares. So you're not doing business directly, but indirectly through your company which you control, and that was the undertaking. And you could actually go out and demerge investments. This is similar to the amalgamations case. So many times we have companies which are holding companies, and when you want to split the holding companies by demerging shares, this is the case law in our favor. There is a budget representation to say that this should form part of 219A definition, so that tomorrow this dispute, because now this is lying in the High Court. So what happens in the High Court, God knows. Whether they will reverse the decision or whether the decision will hold good. But in a demerger, undertaking is a must. If you don't have an undertaking and if you only have shares, then you have to seek protection from this case. But if this case is overturned, then demergers of investments will become very, very difficult. Yes. So the logic is, in financial services, all cannot be done by the main company because banking regulations say you have to have a separate company for the license. Insurance regulation says you have to have a separate company to go out and get an insurance IRDA license. If you want to be in security business, you need to have a company for broking license. Similarly, you need separate companies for conducting your business. So a holdco CIC is very common in a financial, like say if you see Geo Financial is a CIC. So that doesn't mean Geo Financial doesn't have business. It is a CIC. It does this business. It will do a BlackRock JV. It will do leasing. So the business model leads to creation of holding subsidiaries. So in that case, by demerging investments, I'm actually demerging business. So there's a difference. If I have 5% shares in Tata Motors versus having 70% shares in Tata Motors, which I am controlling, taking decisions, monitoring, managing, it's a business. I'm not doing business on my own, I'm doing through a company. But if I have 5% shares of portfolio investment, that is not business. There is a portfolio business. Unless you have lots of shares of many companies buying and selling continuously, you can say I'm demerging my investment business as a portfolio. But debatable. But the case law is there again, so you have to be very careful. When a case law is there, the tax officer will say it's in High Court, it's in appeal, so all demergers of financial service business should be disallowed. So I'll just touch upon this. You all have been reading about this ICICI security, right? So in a nutshell, ICICI security shareholders are offered shares of ICICI Bank, and ICICI Securities will be demerged. So if I am a shareholder of ICICI Security, I will be given shares of ICICI Bank, and the demerger will happen in a nutshell. And I just want to now talk about this. If I, as a shareholder, cancel my shares or give up my shares and are given shares of ICICI Bank, is it a taxable transaction? Yes. Why not? Why no? Why no? Why? How will grandfather happening? I have shares in ICICI Security. I give up my shares, I get shares in ICICI Bank. There is no merger here. There is no merger. It's a delisting offer. It's a share swap. Is share swap taxable? Yes? Taxable? It's not merger. Because security business, as I said, cannot be merged into a bank. Has to be separate. So, if I give up shares and I get shares of ICICI Bank, is it taxable? Answer is taxable. When will the delisting happen? Before I give up the shares or after I give up the shares? After. Any different view? When will delisting happen? Before or after? No, because see, rate delisted share rate is 20%. Listed share rate is 10%. Is the taxation rate 10 or 20%? No, so but you have tendered in the delisting offer. I have said I am willing to give up my shares and take ICICI Bank shares in return. I am not sold on the stock market. 10 or 20? Delisting will happen after I am paid. So till it is listed, rate is 10%. If STT is not paid, I will not get the benefit of 31st January 2018. So if I was holding the share before 31st January 2018, I am better off selling it in the market. Because I'll at least get the grandfathering of the cost. What I'm trying to say is that listed company taxation is not, there's no straight answer. So why are people opposing it? Because why should I approve it? If I sell in the market, so by just exchanging my shares with ICICI Bank shares, I'm paying tax though I don't have liquidity. So that's the thing. Reverse flip. I tell you, how many of you practice here? Many practices, right? Practitioners. What happened 2 years back? What happened 2 years back? You know, the presentation which we saw earlier was the goody part of the presentation. Now I will tell you the reality. What happened 2 years back as practitioners? अरे उसने कंपनी बनाया है सिंगापुर में, मुझे भी बनाने का है. जो उसने किया करने का है. जहाँ US में, सिंगापुर में, better valuation. Investors are saying, I will put in money only if you have a US company, Singapore company. Everybody was in a mad rush. We were called in meetings, नहीं आपको नहीं करने का है तो और किसको कराते हैं, मतलब like as if like it was fine. अच्छा कैसे करेंगे? वो गिफ्ट करेंगे, हाँ मतलब मेरा भाई है, बहन है, सब लोग है, कंपनी बनाएंगे, वो लोग गिफ्ट कर देंगे मुझे, फिर पैसे वहाँ ले लेंगे, रिवर्स फ्लिप करेंगे फिर. Everybody did that. This was a very strong hypothesis 3 years back, Pine Labs, so very strong hypothesis. What went wrong? What went wrong is, in the international market, below $10 billion, nobody follows stocks. हम लोग यहाँ बहुत importance देते हैं लोग को $1 billion पे भी. वहाँ तो 10,000 मतलब $10 billion मतलब कचरा. Nobody even, no analyst tracks you also. So they realize that Indian companies तो कुछ इतनी बड़ी नहीं है, $2-3 billion best. If you see Swiggy, Wiggy, $3-4 billion का खेल है. Nobody will track them. So they realized नहीं India में Zomato है सब अच्छा है, India has a better valuation, let's reverse flip. So again the consultants at play, all running around. चलो merger करते हैं, ये करते हैं, वो करते हैं. Merger करने से क्या होता है? You reverse flip. So you merge a Singapore company into India, all shareholders of Singapore become shareholders in India, and you reverse flip and list. What are the consequences of it? What happens to the carry forward loss of the Indian company? Suppose if me and you are owning shares in Singapore and we merge into our Indian company and get shares in the Indian company which has carry forward of losses. Will the carry forward of losses continue? Sorry? 79. But beneficial interest same, no? Both of us indirectly. Will beneficial interest be overriding? Huh? Debatable. But we will lose mostly. We will lose. Then second is if we both, you were very kind, you were our relative outside round tripping to avoid, we said you gift us shares, you gifted shares to us. Suddenly we have magical shares in Singapore which owns a very big $3 billion structure. If I reverse flip, will RBI sleep? Will RBI sleep? You saw the article which came 2 days back, right? All reverse flips have got ED notices. All the people who had magical gifts which led to overseas structures and trying to flip today will be in scrutiny. So if we take any reverse flip assignments, always go as to how the structure got created. Because when you reverse flip, RBI is getting into things, and rightfully so. Because how can a gift create a $3 billion structure? Ridiculous. So reverse flip, the reality is you have to see the past. What will open in the past? You have to see carry forward loss. You have to see whether you can merge. Can you merge Singapore into India? Pine Lab was the first case. They challenged the law and did it. Can you merge UK into India? A UK company cannot be merged into a non-UK company. Can you merge Germany into India? A EU company cannot merge into a non-EU company. Can you merge US into India? Yes, you can. Delaware, you can flip. So we have to really think through. Suppose if funds own shares of the Singapore company and in the flip get shares in India, is it taxable where the fund is based? Answer is yes. So you may say India में tax free है, but बाहर taxable है. संभाल के एकदम, you have to just take a call. What thumb rule I have is that in India, if you've not created the structure properly in the past, reverse flip is the most dangerous thing. You will straight go to ED. Because all these gifts, all this money being kept overseas, ED will say, what's happening all this? How did you amass so much wealth overseas through these magical mechanisms? If reverse flip happens without going to the NCLT, which case? PhonePe, they paid taxes, $2 billion they paid taxes. Yeah, they paid $2 billion of taxes. Because PhonePe was Singapore, Pine Lab happened after PhonePe. Pine Lab went through convincing the Singapore government that you could merge a Singapore company into India.
So they did not pay the fine.
No.
But actually the underlying reason for reverse flipping is the RBI regulation. RBI said that the operating entity only we will give license only to the Indian entity.
Yeah,
So
no, but
the company has to be an Indian company.
no, for PhonePe, the real reason was listing in India. For Pine Lab also is listing in India. Holding company is fine, but there's an operating company in India which is getting a license, no problem at all. The problem was you can't list. They were hoping that there were less foreign companies list into India. That does not happen. The closest we're getting to is Gift City now, whether Gift City will permit international listings. I don't know how the laws will pan out, but have to be very, very careful. We as professionals have to be very, very careful when we do something what the crowd is doing and when we don't do something, because have to be very, very careful. So this is what we covered. Tax, the mergers are tax neutral, carry forward losses we have to see, valuation swap we have to take care of. So other things, conscious of time, I'll take 5 minutes more. 281 certificate, 195 certificate, indemnities, tax insurance, escrow mechanisms, deferred consideration, paying X number upfront, paying Y number in the future. Suppose if I buy a business from you, sir. Saying I'll pay you 10 rupees today. If your profit is 2 rupees next year, I'll pay you 20 rupees extra. 10 rupees will be taxed today. When will 20 be taxed? When you get it or today? It is a contingent consideration, but the transfer has happened today. Condition is maintenance of EBITDA number. Now, there are case laws which say that if you transferred something for a deferred consideration or a consideration, you have to estimate and pay taxes. You have to estimate and pay taxes. They don't have the mechanism on contingencies. Suppose if the contingency happens after 4 years when the return revision also goes away, then what will you do? Suppose you pay taxes and then you get a refund because you haven't met your earn-out criterias, and actually the total consideration goes down. Then what do you do? How do you do a revised return to get a refund? Very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. 119. How many times 119 is successful? How many times? It's very खुशी की बात भाई करके आते हैं. So, deferred consideration, SPAs. One more. I came across a case. Suppose if I had the wrong example. I was saying, suppose if I transfer transactions, I'll never transfer transactions till my life. Suppose if I transfer a business to you. You came late. Suppose I transfer business to you. I transfer my business for 1,000 rupees. In the agreement, I say, I transfer the business to you. I will not compete for 5 years. Because I have given my business to you, 5 years I will not compete. So the same SPA has a clause of 5 years. 1,000 rupees for the total share price, 5 years non-compete. Is GST payable on 1,000? No, sale consideration. No, you're rewriting GST laws. I'm selling shares to you. Is GST payable on 1,000? That is a controversy that has recently happened. The GST officers are saying, out of 1,000, less value, what is the value of the non-compete? And the value of the non-compete is liable to GST. So how do you deal with this? Then some smart person said, let's do 2 agreements. Let's do sale agreement separate, GST agreement, non-compete agreement separate. So 1,000 rupees split 980 and 20. 980 sale of shares, 20 rupees non-compete. Pay GST on 20, small amount, we all good, all done. Will 980 and 20 be acceptable? So what is more dangerous? To argue is sale of shares or to do 2 agreements? What is more dangerous? 2 agreements is more dangerous. So there are no answers to this. I'm just. Yes, but see the way the law is evolving. See the way the law is evolving. They have all the data.